and we got like fortunate and lucky enough to like still be able to do this now, you know. But so it was like, I think like full circle, it's nice to like be able to work with people since the beginning. You know, it doesn't always work out that way, right? Because sometimes people go their own paths, and there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, I mean, you were like our guy, and like ADCC, like you were our horse, you know, like, you know, now it's like, okay, hey, like, do you want to have like Mikey or Bushesh or, you know, Gardner, whoever the guys are now. But like back then it was like, who's going to ride with us? Who can rep us? And then till now, you know, we're still like, you
were intertwined with the NorCal guys too, right? So like Gilbert Melendez and a lot of MMA guys. And I remember you were trying to help me get a fight in Guam.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're like interconnected like that.
Yeah,
they had MMA fights out there.
Yeah, it was weird, right? Because I was just like a college kid here, but then I had like, since I'm from, you know, I was born here, but then I spent a lot of my time over on Guam, where my family's from, and then like I would go back and forth during that time. And like besides doing jiu-jitsu, like there'd be like MMA was huge back then, right? So it's like you had promotions over there saying, hey, well, do you have guys? I was like, you know what, like let me check Alberto, let me check some of the guys. Maybe I'll like Alberto's fighting like some of these like bigger shows in Japan, so maybe he doesn't have a guy, but maybe he has another guy. And it was kind of like that. And then at that time you're like, oh, I can't fight it because I'm busy, but like maybe I have one or two guys that I can send. I'm like, perfect. So yeah, a little bit of that. It was like that whole era of like
forums, right? And there's forums.
Everybody's on the forums, right? Kind of just like now there's probably like it's Reddit, right? But back then it was like every like fighter had like their own profile on the forums back then, and they would post, right? Like now I guess it's like TikTok and like Instagram, and everyone's like that's their forum. But yeah, back then it was like that was the like that's where everyone communicated, you know, and that was the tribe, you know. So
yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And then I was trying to remember like when you the fighting, and then just the scene right back then. It was like there were barely any tournaments as well. And so how did you get your information, like tournament results and, you know, footage?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I think you back then you traveled a lot, at least just from me watching you from afar, right? Like you were on the circuit, you were competing in Brazil, you were going to Asia. I didn't travel like that much back then, so I didn't have that exposure access, right? And we didn't have like internet was just like 1.0 at that point, you know? So like we didn't
1.0 dial-up, but AOL, the AOL days.
Like they didn't have like, if
before cell phones, right?
you were lucky to get like a scanned image on the internet on a web page back then, right? Like image only, you know? So I think for us, like internet was still kind of like somewhat like not really a thing yet. People didn't really even have web pages yet. But I think back then most of the information was just like locally what was happening, and we were just lucky enough to be in Southern California. Right. And then I think like everybody would come through Brazil and this or that. Right. And then like you start to figure it out. You're like, oh, you're in Huntington Beach and like, or in that area specifically, or Torrance. And you're like, oh, this is that guy. That's that guy. You start like talking to people. Yeah. And then I think at that point it was all VHS. And then like, but the stuff here, everybody had kind of the same stuff. You would buy like the Panther videos off of like Black Belt magazine or something, right? or you would like
I haven't heard about the Panther videos, but that was straight up where you got the stuff. Yeah,
that was like the instructional back then.
Yeah,
right?
And that's how you learned jiu-jitsu. Like you wanted to get extra stuff, right, that you couldn't get in class.
Or you would like see like a technique sequence in like Black Belt magazine or Inside Kung Fu or whatever it was back then, you know.
That's thinking of old footage, right? Maurice Berry, remember Maurice
Berry, right? Bustamante, anybody that was like an MMA star or jiu-jitsu guy, they had like a Panthers promotion. They were like the BJJ, you know, they were like the BJJ fanatics of like back in the day, you know. But I think, and I think the stuff that was like really cool that like most people didn't have access to here because like they would just look at that stuff. I think I met like a buddy, and then he had like dibs to like this guy that was just like recording VHS tapes and then was like ripping them off of like sports TV in Brazil and then all the Japanese channels in Japan. So he would have like all like the Brasileiro, Sport TV, Passando Iguara, like tapes in like 2000, you know, and then he would have like, he's like, hey, I got this like $20, you know. It's just like he recorded it off of his VHS and that's like, it was like, and then he would have like the new Pride, you know, in VHS. Like we didn't get Pride here, and then you would buy that tape for like $15, you know, and like, you're like, oh my God, you see what's happening over here? Like they got like music videos and there's like jiu-jitsu mixtapes going on, and like you see like fighters, and then you had that, and then the opposite of that was like going to the Gracie Academy and learning like a technique or whatever your local gym was, a Machado gym or whatever, and like that was basic.
Man,
so.
that was just you know, the what we had to go through to get to footage, right?
Yeah.
And to see things happening. And now we're just talking about this downstairs, right? How it's like, you know, floor grappling and just even all these training websites. You can just get stuff before it's even in the tournaments, right?
Yeah, and you get that stuff, and we were kind of going like the way that the stuff evolves is just like insane, you know. Like now with like TikTok, we're here talking on a podcast, right? Like it's like the evolution of technology and how things are, how people like reconstruct whatever the new world of what jiu-jitsu and grappling looks like. I think it's cool and exciting. I think we were talking about it before. It's like you can appreciate what the past was and give credit to what that is, and there was something beautiful about that.